Chapter 170. He turned around and glared at the person in front of him. The expression on his face could not be considered pleasant. Su Qingsang took the opportunity to move away from his arms, and took a big step back. Xiao Yanba turned to look at Su Qingsang, as if he didn't see Hu Jinyao's sullen face. Qingsang, I just wanted to tell you that there are more injured people being sent over. Su Qingsang looked in the direction he was pointing. She nodded and turned to look at Hu Jinyao. I'm going to work. Find a place to rest. It's getting late. I'm fine. If you won't sleep, then I won't sleep either. Hu Jinyao's sweet words seemed to be at his fingertips. Su Qingsang rubbed her forehead, feeling a little embarrassed. These words could be said in private, but there were outsiders here. Seriously, Su Qingsang glanced at Hu Jinyao and quickly went to work. After midnight, the doctors and nurses who were in charge of the handover woke up. Su Qingsang finally had time to rest for a while. The medical team had a special tent to rest in, with many people sharing one tent. Hu Jinyao had been waiting for Su Qingsang. When she was done, he pulled her into the tent that he and his men had set up. You can sleep here for a while. There's no need. Don't make it special. How is this special treatment? Hu Jinyao held her hand. This place is so small. I feel like you're wronged. Hu Jinyao. That's enough, my wife. Don't argue with me about these small things. You'd better get some rest. I guess I'll be busy tomorrow. All right. Su Qingsang thought about it and agreed, so she stopped arguing. The place was limited, and the environment was simple. She simply washed up and went to bed. When he entered the tent, he found that Su Qingsang had already fallen asleep. She had been busy just now, and there were many people around her. So Hu Jinyao hadn't been able to take a good look at her. Now that he was free, he took out the ointment he had prepared earlier, and sat down beside Su Qingsang. He had noticed that Su Qingsang's forehead was a little swollen. He didn't know how he got hurt. He used the emergency light to apply the ointment on Su Qingsang's wound. His movements weren't big, but Su Qingsang only moved a little. She was in a deep sleep. She was probably exhausted. After applying the medicine, Hu Jinyao stared at her face for a while. Finally, he leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Only then did he lie down beside her and rest together with her. Su Qingsang woke up before dawn the next day. Actually, no one could really sleep well that night. The whole night was filled with the sound of excavators and all sorts of noises. As soon as she woke up, Hu Jinyao, who was outside, heard the noise and poked his head in. Why don't you sleep a little longer? It was too late when he came yesterday, so he only saw it clearly when the sun rose. The faint shadows in Su Qingsang's eyes suggested that she hadn't had a good rest. Hu Jinyao's heart ached. He even had the urge to light his cigarette and take Su Qingsang back to Lin City. I'm not sleeping anymore. Hearing the noise outside, Su Qingsang quickly sat up, stood up and stretched her limbs. Su Qingsang walked out of the tent and saw that the people around her were all busy. She casually washed up and headed to the tent where the medical team was located. Why don't you at least eat something first? Hu Jinyao held her hand. He handed the breakfast that he had prepared beforehand to her and said, Eat breakfast first. I won't let you go if you don't eat. Su Qingsang looked at his stubborn eyes and had no other choice but to take it. She ate very quickly, without any elegance or gentleness. Chapter 171. Su Qingsang took a few sips of the milk he handed to her, but didn't say anything in the end. After finishing it, she waved her hand and was about to leave. Honey, Hu Jinyao really lost to her. He took out a tissue and handed it to her. No matter how anxious she was, she didn't need to disregard her image to this extent, right? Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. She had been too anxious. She took the tissue and wiped her face. Without looking at Hu Jinyao, she hurried to treat the wounded. After a few steps, she stopped and turned around to look at Hu Jinyao. By the way, if there's nothing else, you should leave. It's a mess here. I don't think I'll go back so soon. Hu Jinyao gave Su Qingsang a really sad look. Honey, isn't it good for me to stay here with you? Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. It's not good or bad. It's just inappropriate. How is it inappropriate? It's just not suitable. Su Qingsang waved at him. Remember, let's go back as soon as the traffic starts. After Su Qingseng left, Hua Jinyao was still holding the half-empty bottle of milk in his hand. He turned around and saw Qiu Yanba looking at him with his arms crossed. TSK, looks like President Hua is also despised. Mr. Qiu, you really have nothing better to do. Hua Jinyao glanced at him coldly. But you think too much. That's because Qingseng loves me. I know very well whether or not I feel sorry for you. Qiu Yanba moved closer to Hua Jinyao. I'm curious how Qingseng would feel if she found out that her husband lied to her. I'm curious too. If the Li family and the Su family knew what you're thinking right now, how would they feel? President Hua, you're worrying too much. Back then, the Chou family had an engagement with the Su family, but it wasn't specified who would be the executor of the engagement. Speaking of which, Qingsong's surname is also Su. Hua Jinyao didn't look too good. Let me remind you, Mr. Chou. Qingseng was already married. She's my wife now. I know. Qiu Yanba nodded. But what about marriage? This marriage could still be divorced. What's more, I'm afraid Qingseng doesn't know that her marriage is a sham. Boss Chou, be careful with your words. It's better not to talk nonsense without solid evidence. Is there no evidence? Qiu Yanba lowered his voice. The young master of the Hua family in Rong City is engaged to the Su family. Everyone in Rong City knows about this. Looking at Hua Jinyao's unchanging expression, he was impressed that Hua Jinyao could still be so calm at a time like this. But I'm also really curious. The dignified young master of the Hua family, the president of the Tianyu group, had actually come to Lin City, thousands of miles away from Rong City, to marry an illegitimate daughter who had been detested by her family. I'm really curious about the reason behind this. I wonder if President Hua would be willing to answer my questions. Hua Jinyao's expression slowly became serious. He narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Qiu Yanba in front of him. Qiu Yanba generously let him see. Seeing that he didn't speak, he added, I'm here because I can be honest with my heart. I just don't know if President Hua can do it. Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change. Yes or no? I don't need to explain to Mr. Qiu. Excuse me. He turned around and left. Yang Wenchang had also woken up and seemed to be looking for him. Chapter 172. It wasn't the first time Su Qingseng had faced death, but this was the most tragic one. The rescue team brought over the buried family of 3. When they arrived, all of them had no signs of life. The entire medical team didn't make a sound. They just looked at the family of 3. The youngest child looked like he was only 4 or 5 years old. Deputy Director Chen was the first to react. He picked up the white cloth and covered the child. Su Qingseng covered the other person with the white cloth. She knew that this was inevitable, but facing such a tragic scene still made her feel like acting. When Hua Jinyao found her at noon, he immediately noticed that she wasn't in a good mood. Honey, are you too tired? Su Qingseng shook her head and glanced at Hua Jinyao. Eat. Hua Jinyao came over with instant noodles in his hand. It's ready. The conditions here are limited. You can eat first. As he spoke, he put the instant noodles on the simple table beside him. It's rare that it's not raining anymore. It'll be easier for the rescue work to start. You should eat something, or you'll be out of energy in the afternoon. It rained all night last night, and didn't stop until this morning. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingseng suddenly reached out and hugged him. Hua Jinyao was stunned. It was rare for Su Qingseng to take the initiative. He should have enjoyed it, but it was obviously not the right time. What's wrong? What happened? Hua Jinyao reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist. His voice was so gentle that he didn't even realize it. Su Qingseng didn't know what to say. Disasters had always been like this. When it came, no one would be spared. Hua Jinyao didn't know why he was like this, so he could only guess. Are you too tired? Su Qingseng shook her head. She didn't want to talk at this time. Then, Hua Jinyao looked into the distance. The medical team was actually some distance away from the landslide. This was just the first aid point. After the injured were treated, they would be immediately transferred to the county hospital. There were still people searching for them. The longer time passed, the lower the survival rate. How could he forget this? Honey. Hua Jinyao hugged Su Qingsong's waist tightly and said in a very soft voice, birth, aging, illness and death, natural disasters, these are all unavoidable. You don't want it either. Don't blame yourself. How could Su Qingseng not know that? But he could only watch helplessly as his life was taken away in front of him. Even if he was a doctor, he still made her feel uncomfortable. All right. Hua Jinyao patted her on the back. Honey, hurry up and eat something. Think about it this way. You have to take care of yourself first. Only then can you save more people and help more people. Don't you agree? As he spoke, Hua Jinyao took a step back. He reached out and stroked her cheek. I believe that you will definitely save more people, right? His eyes were deep and firm. Su Qingseng looked at him. Even though the gloom in her heart hadn't dissipated, she felt much better. His words and his embrace were like a hot spring, nourishing her heart bit by bit. Whether it was the incident with Zhang Mei last time or this time, Su Qingseng was extremely glad that Hua Jinyao had always been there for her. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingseng looked at him and met his eyes. Thank you. She had never believed in love, nor was she willing to believe in men. Chapter 173. The rescue work lasted for 3 days. Except for a few missing villagers, the casualties had been confirmed. Su Qingseng and the medical team she was in had been working around the clock. As long as they were still breathing, they would be able to save their lives. Some of them were beyond their abilities. Hua Jinyao stayed with her for 3 days. She performed the surgery and helped to deal with the patients. He became a volunteer and kept himself busy. Besides him, there was Qiu Yanba. He had also been very busy and had done a lot of things with them. 3 days later, the rescue work came to an end. The doctors in Qingyuan County took over. Su Qingseng and the others finally received instructions from the higher-ups to return to Lin City. Su Qingseng came in the medical team's car, but she got in Hua Jinyao's car to go back. During this period of time, she had not slept well at all. As soon as she got in the car, Hua Jinyao adjusted the seat for her. It'll take more than 2 hours to get back to Lin City. You should sleep. What about you? Aren't you sleepy? I'm not sleepy. Hua Jinyao found a blanket, opened it, and covered her with it. Go to sleep. Su Qingseng glanced at him and didn't refuse. She yawned, laid her body flat, and fell asleep. When she woke up, she found that she was already home in Lin City. She slept so soundly that she didn't even know how she got into the house. She looked around awkwardly, but didn't see Hua Jinyao. When she came out of the room, she didn't see him. Sister Lu, the part-time helper, had arrived and was cooking in the kitchen. Sister Lu, have you seen Hua Jinyao? He seems to be in the study. Sister Lu didn't stop working. He told me to call him after dinner. It's almost time for dinner. Su Qingseng nodded and followed her into the study. Hua Jinyao seemed to be busy. He sat behind the desk with a laptop open in front of him and a pile of documents beside him. He stared at the screen sideways, not noticing that she had come in. Yes, do as I say. By the way, change the price on the tender. I'm not satisfied with what they did before. And the last time, he saw Su Qingseng enter the door from the corner of his eye. He whispered into the phone that he would talk to her later and hung up. You're awake? Yes. Su Qingseng took a few steps forward and looked at the documents on the table. There were so many words and all kinds of reports. She felt dizzy just by looking at them. Are you busy? I'm fine. Did your trip to Qingyuan County delay a lot of work? It was rare for Su Qingseng to feel a little guilty. What are you thinking? Nothing. Of course, Hua Jinyao wouldn't tell her that he had left behind a lot of things in Rong City to attend to. Nor would he tell her that there were indeed a lot of things to do in the company. He reached out to hold Su Qingseng's hand and looked at her face. After sleeping for the whole journey, she looked much better than when she had left Qingyuan. They had been raised well. Go to bed early tonight and recover your energy. Su Qingseng didn't refute. Just as she was about to say that Hua Jinyao also needed a good rest, her phone rang. Ping Su lines. Sister, are you okay? Su Yusin had heard that something had happened to Qingyuan, but he only found out later that Su Qingseng was also there. When he found out, he was shocked and called Su Qingseng immediately. Chapter 174. Are you sure? Yes, I'm back. That's good. Su Yusin breathed a sigh of relief. He thought of something else, and suddenly didn't know if he should tell Su Qingsang. What's wrong? Is there anything else? It's Qiu Yanba. Su Yusin's face darkened when he said the name, and his voice became colder. He wants to break off the engagement with my sister. What did you say? Su Qingsang was shocked. When did this happen? Yesterday. Last night. Qiu Yanba came to their door in a very solemn manner, and gave them generous gifts, begging for their forgiveness. The Su family was confused, but Qiu Yanba said that he wanted to break off the engagement with Su Peijian. Everyone in the Su family was shocked. Su Peijian in particular could not accept this reality at all. What did I do wrong? How have I wronged you? You want to break off the engagement? You're fine. You didn't do anything wrong. However, I suddenly realized that what I feel for you is not love, so I want to break off the engagement. Of course, Su Peijian wouldn't accept this excuse. We've been engaged for a long time. Why didn't you say that you didn't love me? Now that we've been engaged for 2 or 3 years, you're saying it's not love? Qiu Yanba, how could there be such a thing? I'm sorry. Qiu Yanba's attitude was firm. I was wrong before. I thought I could make do with being with Peijian like this, but I realized I couldn't do it. How powerful was Su Peijian? Hearing Qiu Yanba's words, how could she swallow her pride? Don't make up excuses. Why don't you tell me directly if you have other women outside? I really didn't. Qiu Yanba's expression was honest. If that's what you think, there's nothing I can do. I really just don't want to make do. Make do? Lu Fei was the eldest daughter of the Su family. How could Qiu Yanba call her a mediocre person? How could Su Peijian tolerate such humiliation? She stood up without hesitation, and pointed at Qiu Yanba with a determined expression. So what? Do you think I care about you? Su Chenghui and Li Qianxue hadn't figured out how to solve the problem yet. Su Peijian said, Get out. Get out of my house right now. I don't ever want to see you again. Yesterday happened to be Sunday, and Su Yusin was also at home. He was completely caught off guard by this turn of events. Li Qianxue liked Qiu Yanba very much, and so did Su Chenghui. The 2 elders knew that Su Peijian was stubborn and proud, so they had to put in a good word for her. However, no matter what the 2 elders said, Qiu Yanba insisted on breaking off the engagement. Not only that, but they also returned the token of engagement between the 2 families. This could be considered a firm attitude. Su Yusin was a little emotional. He had called Qiu Yanba brother-in-law for the past few years. Who knew that such a change would happen? Su Qingsang was completely dumbfounded. Qiu Yanba had been with them for the past few days, volunteering in Qingyuan County. Later, he said that he had something to do, and came to say goodbye to her. Then he returned to Lin City a day earlier. Su Qingsang thought that he had gotten over it, after seeing her with Hu Jingyao every day. Who knew that not only did this person not think it through, but he also made such a big move as soon as he came back. Su Qingsang felt a surge of uneasiness in her heart. For so many years, she was able to live in harmony with the Su family, maintaining a semblance of peace. It was only because she had no conflict of interest with the Su family. Chapter 175. However, if the Su family and the Li family found out that she caused Qiu Yanba to break off the engagement with Su Peijian, things would get complicated. Even if it had nothing to do with her, she was the cause. Sister? Sister, can you hear me? Sister? I'm fine. Su Qingsang shook her head. She didn't know what she could do. She just hoped that Qiu Yanba wouldn't go crazy. Yes. I'll visit you in a few days when I have time off. Okay. Su Qingsang was still very willing to be close to Su Yusin. However, she said, You comfort your sister when you're free. Let her be more open-minded. She can definitely find a better man with her qualifications. I know, but I don't have time to stay at home every day. I can only ask my mother to persuade her. After hanging up the phone, Su Qingsang found that Hu Jingyao was staring at her. She couldn't hide the expression on her face from him. What happened? Nothing. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say and looked at Hu Jingyao. She really couldn't say that Qiu Yanba broke off the engagement with Su Peijian because of her. First, it would make her seem so important. It would be too narcissistic. Second, no husband would be happy to hear such news. She believed that Hu Jinyao was no exception. You and I are husband and wife. What can't we talk about? Hu Jinyao turned off the computer, put away the documents, and walked to her. Look at you. You're frowning so hard that you could kill a mosquito. How can you say it's nothing? Qiu Yanba broke off the engagement with Su Peijian. Su Qingsang told him in the end, I don't know if it's because of me, but if it's because of me, I feel. It has nothing to do with you. It's Qiu Yanba's own business. Hu Jinyao interrupted her, and didn't let her continue to blame herself. He's not a child anymore. He should also learn to pay for his actions. Since he made up his mind, he must have thought it through. But if he has feelings for Su Peijian, he can continue with or without you. Su Qingsang knew that what he said was true, but she was still a little worried. I just don't want my father and aunt to. Don't worry. Hu Jinyao held her in his arms. I won't let them bully you. I'm not talking about bullying. Anyway, I don't like it. I don't like it either. Hu Jinyao kissed her on the forehead. You're my wife. That Qiu Yanba is so annoying. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. He's annoying, but I can't deny that he did save me this time. I just hope he did it on impulse. Impulsive? I think he has ulterior motives. Hu Jinyao sneered. He came here just like that, and said that he wanted to break off the engagement with Su Peijian. On the surface, it looks like it's for you, but in reality, it's only for himself. Seeing Su Qingsang looking at him with a puzzled look, he added, think about it. He said he likes you and has feelings for you. Then he would break off the engagement with Su Peijian. At that time, he could say that he did all of this for her. What will happen to you? You are already married. You can't accept him. His actions are just to make you feel guilty and sad. If you weren't married, his actions would only make things difficult for you. Think about it. Don't you agree? Chapter 176. She laughed bitterly and said self-deprecatingly, I've known since I was a child that the Su family didn't like me. She had nothing to do with me, but she raised me. Of course she wouldn't like me. Even I, Su Chunghui, call him dad, but I know he doesn't see me as his daughter. After all these years, I've gotten over it. I'm just a little confused. If they don't like me, why did they bring me back to the Su family? Send me away. Send me to some orphanage, or some poor family. Wouldn't they be happier not to see me? Su Qingsang had been confused for so many years, but no one had come to help her. This time, I'm not concerned about Qiu Yanba. I'm just worried about the Li family and the Su family. They might not bully me, but the Su family raised me. But no matter what, the Su family raised me, and I don't want to have any real conflict or opposition with them. Do you understand? Hu Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang. Her features were gentle and beautiful, and her eyes were clear. He felt something in his heart. He pulled her into his arms again, and gently patted her back. My wife is so kind. Don't worry. Qiu Yanba was the one who started all of this. Neither the Su family, nor the Li family can blame you for this. He would never give them an excuse to make things difficult for Su Qingsang. She was the person he wanted to protect. Su Qingsang pressed her lips into a straight line, and finally nodded. I won't talk about it anymore. Let's go eat. Okay. You have to promise me that you won't think about it anymore. These things really have nothing to do with you. It would be good if it really had nothing to do with her. Su Qingsang shook her head, and decided not to think about it for now. Hu Jinyao narrowed his eyes. He felt very uncomfortable thinking about Qiu Yanba. Although he had insulted him in front of Su Qingsang, the punishment was too light for him. It seemed that the Qiu family had too much free time recently. That was why Qiu Yanba had so much free time to come to Su Qingsang. It was time for him to find something for Qiu Yanba to do. Su Qingsang rested at home for 2 days before going to work. As soon as she entered the hospital, she was notified. Due to the trauma and outstanding performance of the medical team during the landslide, the medical team that went to Qingyuan County would be commended this Friday. Not only did he receive a commendation, but he also received a month's worth of performance pay. As soon as Su Qingsang sat down, she received a call from Shi Mingwan. What do you think? Are you done? It's about time. What happened? You can do it. I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've become a hero. What are you talking about? What do you think I said? Didn't you watch the news for the past 2 days? What news? Su Qingsing hadn't watched the news. She didn't react for a moment when she heard Shi Mengwan's words. Someone posted your photo on the internet. You're famous now. Weibo. Su Qingsing had been so busy that she didn't have time to check Weibo. You'd better take a look. Shi Mengwan's voice was still a little dissatisfied. Are you my friend? Do you think of me as your best friend? How could you not tell me when something so dangerous happened to you? I'm just too busy to deal with it. Look at her. She was so busy these days that her feet could barely touch the ground. She really forgot to contact Shi Mengwan. You can't take care of it, right? You even asked me to look for news about you on Weibo. You're really something. Chapter 177. Su Qingsing hung up the phone and went to check Weibo. She found that there was a hashtag, the most beautiful doctor hashtag, on the local popular Weibo. The top post was a photo of her during the rescue in Qingyuan County. In the photo, she was kneeling and giving first aid to a patient. She didn't know who took the photo and posted it on the internet. The photo was a little blurry, but her facial features could be seen very clearly. There were over 10,000 reposts and over 100,000 likes. Su Qingsing looked at the photo and didn't think much about it. She just wondered which patient's family member took the photo. Su Qingsing didn't take it to heart at all. She continued to receive patients and perform surgeries. At night, she drove home by herself. Recently, her schedule didn't match with Hu Jinyao's. When she got home and put down her bag, Hu Jinyao was still awake. Honey, you're back? Yes. Su Qingsing nodded. Have you eaten? What time is it? Hu Jinyao looked at the time. What's wrong? Haven't you eaten? Yes. Su Qingsing looked at him and thought that she was on the top of Weibo today. She couldn't help but take out her phone and share it with Hu Jinyao. Let me tell you something. What? Su Qingsing was too embarrassed to praise herself. She directly opened Weibo and put it in front of Hu Jinyao. The most beautiful doctor? Hu Jinyao stared at the screen for a while. It's only been 1 day, and it's been reposted over 50,000 times and liked over 200,000 times? Huh? It went up again. Su Qingsing hadn't noticed it yet. She leaned over to look at the screen. I haven't noticed it yet. You purposely showed me this. Su Qingsing blushed a little. She looked away and felt a little uncomfortable. Can't I? Yes. But my wife is beautiful. I don't need them to judge her as the most beautiful doctor. Hu Jinyao kissed Su Qingsing on the cheek. Su Qingsing blushed. I didn't mean that. She didn't want him to praise her. She just wanted to show him that she was a celebrity. Then what do you mean? Hu Jinyao stared at her face, and his eyes, which were as bright as stars, suddenly became deep. Speaking of which, wife, I've been a vegetarian since you went to the countryside. Su Qingsing looked at him, and the smile on her face froze. When you came back, I sympathized with your hard work. I said that you were tired, and let you rest for another 2 days. Come to think of it, we haven't had a good chat for more than half a month. Su Qingsing stood up abruptly and quickly took a big step back. I'll go take a shower first. That's good. Hu Jinyao nodded, and the smile on his face became more and more meaningful. It'll be better if you shower faster. Seeing Su Qingsing quickly dash into the bathroom, the smile on Hu Jinyao's face disappeared. He stared at the Weibo post for a long time, his expression solemn. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. He took out his phone and pressed a few numbers. Help me find out what's going on with the most beautiful doctor's Weibo. Is it a coincidence or is it intentional? Yes. After the investigation, the topic should disappear. That was right. Do it cleanly. It was a good thing that Su Qingsing had become a celebrity on Weibo. However, he smelled something different. Now, he only hoped that he was thinking too much. He threw his phone aside and found that Su Qingsing's bag was still on the bed. Hu Jinyao picked it up and was about to help her put it aside. Chapter 178. Hu Jinyao picked up the bottle and glanced at it. One look was all it took to know what it was. He clenched the bottle and glanced in the direction of the bathroom with a complicated expression. Su Qingsing came out of the shower with steam still on her body. She picked up the hairdryer to dry her hair. Before she started, someone took the hairdryer from her. She looked at Hua Jinyao's face in the mirror, and he looked at her. I'll dry it for you. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed and reached out her hand. I can do it myself. It's not like I don't have hands. I like to help you. Hua Jinyao avoided her hand and gently lifted a strand of her hair. Su Qingsang was not used to it, but seeing Hua Jinyao enjoying it, she couldn't bear to refuse him. She stared at Hua Jinyao in the mirror. From this angle, his face was really handsome. Then he looked very gentle when he focused on drying her hair. A strange feeling flashed through her heart, and Su Qingsang's face suddenly turned a little red. The burning temperature on her face made Su Qingsang extremely uncomfortable. However, Hua Jinyao had already dried her hair. He put down the hairdryer and leaned forward with his chin against her neck. What? You keep looking at me. Did you suddenly find that your husband is too handsome? Are you falling in love with me? Su Qingsang blushed and moved her body to the side. Stop it. It's late. Go to sleep. Yes. Yes. It's late. Go to sleep. As he spoke, Hua Jinyao reached out and picked Su Qingsang up. Su Qingsang was startled and quickly wrapped her arms around Hua Jinyao's neck to prevent herself from falling. The moment her body touched the bed, even though it wasn't the first time, Su Qingsang was still a little nervous. Speaking of which, they hadn't slept for more than half a month. Wife. After Hua Jinyao put her down, he didn't do anything else. He turned over and lay down beside her. His big hands clasped her waist and let her sleep against him. This change stunned Su Qingsang. She turned to look at him, as if she didn't understand why he let her go so easily today. Go to sleep. Hua Jinyao kissed her on the cheek. He didn't make any further moves. Su Qingsang was even more surprised. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, she clearly felt that he also wanted to. Just a moment ago, he had said those words, but now he had no reaction at all. No, there's a reaction. She felt it. His face was a little uneasy, but more of it was filled with doubt. Hua Jinyao, what happened to him today? I'm very hot right now. Don't provoke me again. What are you talking about? Su Qingsang turned over. She was tired after a whole day of work. She pulled his hand away and planned to sleep. Hua Jinyao put his arm around her again. Su Qingsang clearly felt his excitement, but she didn't understand why he didn't continue. Honey. Hua Jinyao pressed his face against her neck. His hot breath tickled her. Just as she was about to move forward to hide, his next words made her whole body stiffen. Don't take that birth control pill anymore. Birth control pills? He saw it. Su Qingsang didn't know how to react. Have a baby? At this stage, she did not want to. Don't take that medicine anymore. It's not good for your body. I'll buy condoms tomorrow. You can tell me about this kind of thing in the future. Su Qingsang's body had been very stiff. How could Hua Jinyao not feel it? He kissed her on the cheek and tightened his arms. Honey, I'm your husband. If you have any thoughts, you can tell me directly. Chapter 179. The room was so quiet that Su Qingsang could hear her own heartbeat, one after another. Not only hers, but also Hua Jinyao's. Su Qingsang's body had been very stiff. She wasn't sure if Hua Jinyao was telling the truth. She had a hunch that he would be angry. I'm not angry. As if he knew what she was thinking, Hua Jinyao's voice rang in her ear. Well, I'm actually a little angry too. This kind of thing should be between the two of us. Of course, if you don't want to have children, you can discuss it with me. You're a doctor. You can't not know how harmful these drugs are. I hope you won't take them again. I didn't think of using contraceptives before. It was my mistake. Next time something like this happens, you can talk to me. Actually, it's not just you. I'm not ready to be a father either. Hua Jinyao's arm around her tightened. Su Qingsang wanted to say something, but she felt that whatever she said would be useless. I also think it's more appropriate to have children when both of us are ready. I believe you think so, right? After listening to him talk for so long, Su Qingsang finally turned around. She looked at Hua Jinyao. The light from the bedside lamp shone on his face. His facial features looked a little blurry in the dark. When she looked into his eyes seriously, they were filled with her shadow. Su Qingsang gently nodded. Hua Jinyao, I admit that I'm not ready. I know. Hua Jinyao kissed her forehead. It's okay. I'm not ready either. Since we're not ready, then let's have children when we're both ready. Okay. Su Qingseng nodded gently. Looking at Hua Jinyao's face, she couldn't restrain her inner desire. She raised her hand, put it around Hua Jinyao's neck, and kissed him. Hua Jinyao held her waist for a long time before finally letting her go. He buried his cheek in her neck. Don't provoke me again. Otherwise, I won't care if you take the medicine or not. Su Qingseng's face turned red. She quickly turned around and said, I'm sleepy. I want to sleep. Hua Jinyao gritted his teeth and bit her face in dissatisfaction. She was always like this, running away after provoking him. She was really too much. Su Qingseng was in pain, but she didn't dare to speak. Seeing that even her earlobes were red, Hua Jinyao finally got up and went to the bathroom to take a cold shower. As soon as he left, Su Qingseng pulled up the blanket and covered her face. Taking a cold shower in this weather was actually quite pitiful. However, she felt a warmth in her heart. Once again, she felt that marriage was a good thing, and Hua Jinyao was a good thing. The atmosphere in the Tianyu CEO's office was a little gloomy. Hua Jinyao glanced at Yang Wenchang. What do you mean? Just as you guessed, President Hua. Miss Su's news has been at the top of the hot search list. It looks like there's a water army behind it. After we found out about it yesterday, we immediately sent out our PR team to suppress the trending topic. There's a ghostwriter. Yes, not only were there fake reviewers, but there were also people who bought the trending searches. But President Hua, how do you know someone did this on purpose? Recently, Xiaoqing's affair with Yang Liufei caused such a big commotion, but it's only this popular. There must be a reason behind this abnormality. I believe this matter is not simple. Chapter 180. We're already looking into it, but they're using an internet phone and hid their ID address. We need some time. Okay, keep an eye on this. Then tell me the results. And President Hua. The intercom rang. Hua Jinyao pressed the speaker button. President Hua. He Xiankai from his company is downstairs. He wants to see you. I won't see him. Hua Jinyao looked up and found Yang Wenchang smiling awkwardly. President Hua. This is something else I want to talk to you about. I don't know how Mr. He got in touch with Chairman Hua. Chairman Hua said that we'll cancel the bid and work with the He family. Yang Wenchang's voice became softer and softer. He shrunk his neck and wanted to find a hole to hide in. Do I have the final say in this company or my dad? Of course it's you. But Yang Wenchang didn't want to admit it. President Hua, I don't think you need to compete with the chairman. He still has 30% of Tianyu's shares. Hua Jinyao's face darkened. If you think my dad is willing to let you sell your shares, I don't mind if you go back to Rong City with my dad right now. President Hua, I didn't mean that. Okay, get out. I won't see He Xiankai. If he can come up with a bid that I like, this project will belong to the He family. Yes. Yang Wenchang didn't dare to say anything else. He turned around and left. He felt cold sweat on his back as he left. He Xianyao saw He Xiankai walk in and immediately walked up to him. Brother, how did it go? Did Brother Jinyao agree? No. He Xiankai looked at his sister. I told you it wouldn't work, but you didn't listen. Are you okay now? How is that possible? Does Hua Jinyao not listen to Uncle Hua anymore? If he listened to his family, why would he come to Lin City alone? He Xiankai sighed inwardly. Now I can only hope that the bid is approved. Otherwise, it's not a big deal if we don't get the deal and make money. I'm afraid that the business landscape in Rong City will have to be rearranged. Brother. He Xuanyao's face was full of uneasiness. What if Hua Jinyao deliberately didn't let the He family pass? Brother. I think there's another person who can make Hua Jinyao yield. Xianyao, stop messing around. You can go back to Rong City in a few days. You don't have to worry about the project here. Brother. He Xianyao didn't want to leave. It's okay that Hua Jinyao doesn't like me. But there's one person he can't possibly not like, right? Who? Su Ruoli. He Xianyao thought of the woman that even she felt inferior to. Don't forget. Sister Ruoli is the daughter-in-law appointed by the Hua family. The Hua and Su families are engaged. Stop fooling around. Hua Jinyao is already married. He's married. But I believe that Sister Ruoli is different to him. I've decided. I'm going to call Sister Ruoli now. Xianyao? Xianyao. He Xiankai wanted to stop her, but he Xianyao went back to her room with her phone. In the end he couldn't stop it because he also wanted to know. Did Hua Jinyao still care about Su Ruoli as much as he did before? If he did, then there was still a chance for their cooperation this time. Chapter 181. Thanks to yesterday's Weibo post, a bunch of patients came to see her today. Some of the patients were not even pregnant at all. They just wanted to see the so-called most beautiful doctor. It had only been a morning, but she was already exhausted. She took the opportunity to look at Weibo while she was in the bathroom and found that her post had long been removed from the hot search list. There were no more likes like yesterday. Before she could heave a sigh of relief, there were still many patients and pregnant women who came in the afternoon. The number of patients she received was more than 10 times the usual number, which made Su Qingseng very tired. Even Hua Jinyao could see that she was tired until she got off work. What's wrong with you? He knew that she was too tired from work yesterday, so he specifically said that he would pick her up today. I'm fine. There are quite a lot of patients today. Su Qingseng slumped in her seat. People fear fame as pigs fear getting fat. I understand now. You have a lot of patients today? Because of that Weibo post? Hua Jinyao pondered for a moment. There was indeed something wrong with that Weibo post. But did he just want Su Qingseng to be lighter? Smart. You're right. Su Qingseng gave him an appreciative look. It's because of that Weibo post. Patients came to see me today. It's fine if you say that it's only obstetrics and gynecology. Even those who were not from the obstetrics and gynecology department came. They asked me if I could take a picture with them. What's going on? They were all patients, so Su Qingseng couldn't just kick them out. He sent people over to maintain order. Some of them were patients and had come to see a doctor. The obstetrics and gynecology department is so busy today. I'm glad that Chief Zhang and Chief Chen aren't petty people. Otherwise, they'll probably give me a hard time if I make such a big commotion. Who dares? Hua Jinyao rubbed the top of her head and said, My wife is so hardworking and professional. I can't wait to praise her. How can I make things difficult for you? Glib. Su Qingseng couldn't stand it anymore. Director Zhang has been a doctor for almost 30 years. Chief Chen also had 20 years of experience. They are professional, dedicated, serious, and responsible. I don't care if they are professional or not. Anyway, my wife is the most beautiful. That's enough. Are you going to go home or not? It was getting late into autumn, and the nights in Lin City came earlier than usual. The sky outside was starting to darken. Yes, but we still have to go buy something first. Buy what? Su Qingseng smiled at Hua Jinyao, but didn't answer her question. For some reason she felt a little flustered. 20 minutes later, Su Qingseng glanced at the bag of Okamoto super thin in the back seat, then looked at the smile on Hua Jinyao's face. She couldn't help but blush. Why did you buy so many? She had fainted just now. She actually accompanied Hua Jinyao to buy this. It was fine if he bought this. He even bought so much. It was fine if he bought a lot. And all of them were taking large sizes. The way the shop assistant looked at her just now wasn't right. She was still feeling uneasy. If it's consumed quickly, then buy more. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to run around all the time. Hua Jinyao grinned, showing his white teeth. Su Qingseng felt her gums hurt a little, so she spoke without thinking. You've bought so much. It's enough for us to use for a year. Honey. Hua Jinyao cleared his throat and glanced at Su Qingseng with a hint of resentment. Are you questioning my ability? Yes. That's it. It'll be used up in a month. Hua Jinyao's words almost made Su Qingseng fall off the seat. You. Chapter 182. Me what? Hua Jinyao winked at her as he drove. Honey, don't worry. I'll try my best to prove to you that this won't take a year. You don't have to prove it. You really don't have to. Su Qingseng was scared to death. Take it easy. A man's kidney really needs to be maintained. The car suddenly stopped. If she hadn't been wearing a seatbelt, she would have hit the car in front of her. Hua Jinyao. Wife. Don't worry. Hua Jingyao steered the car again. He didn't forget to give Su Qingsang a look. Not only can I prove that these won't take a year, I can also prove that my kidneys are fine. Furthermore, it has a permanent battery life and will never lose power. Su Qingsang was stunned. Looking at Hua Jinyao's eager face, she wanted to cry but had no tears. Hua Jinyao, I believe you. You don't have to prove it. No, I must prove it. Hua Jinyao, don't worry. I will definitely make you happy. Su Qingsang felt a headache when she heard him emphasize the word happy. It wasn't that she didn't want him to make her unhappy. She was only worried about her waist. When he got home, Hua Jinyao spent the whole night trying to prove to Su Qingsang that not only was his waist and kidneys fine, but that he could also last forever without a power outage. Su Qingsang was in trouble. When he woke up in the morning, he felt weak all over. He had no strength at all. When she entered the hospital, her complexion even attracted the attention of Deputy Chief Chun. Qingsang, you must be exhausted yesterday, right? Do you want me to put you off? No need. She was not tired because of the hospital. Take it easy. Deputy Chief Chun had also seen the Weibo post. You're the most beautiful doctor in our hospital now. In the future, it will be the trademark of our obstetrics and gynecology department. Take care of yourself. Director Chen, you're teasing me too. Chief Chen waved the medical records in his hand and went out. The popularity of Weibo had died down, but the number of patients today did not decrease by much. After that, Su Qingsang even had her meals in her office. She finished them in 5 minutes. Finally, after noon there were fewer patients. However, she received a patient who was relatively familiar to her. Li Rongrong was more than 4 months pregnant. He could already see her stomach beginning to swell. She had come alone, and when she entered, her face was pale and she did not look well. Su Qingsang was stunned when she saw her. She hadn't forgotten how this woman had made a scene in the hospital. However, the doctor still had to do what he had to do. Let's take an ultrasound first, then do a routine examination. When was your last period? Dr. Su, didn't we ask about this last time? Li Rongrong did not cooperate at all. She had one hand on her belly, looking very protective of the baby. Did you bring your medical record? No. Since you didn't, then answer again. I forgot. Isn't this your business? Yes. It's our business. So please pay the fee now, and then do the examination. Li Rongrong didn't take the paper in her hand. Instead, she covered her stomach with one hand, and looked like she was in pain. My stomach hurts. I can't move. Where does it hurt? Get up and check. It hurts everywhere. My whole stomach hurts. Chapter 183. Li Rongrong leaned most of her weight on Su Qingsang. Doctor, can you help me to get an ultrasound? I'm in a lot of pain right now. Li Rongrong, you're the prettiest doctor. You can't be so cold-blooded, can you? Su Qingsang nodded. She knew that Li Rongrong was here to make things difficult for her. She didn't say much, and called a nurse to help Li Rongrong register. Then she called the internal line to contact the ultrasound room. She helped Li Rongrong up and walked out. The clinic was on the 3rd floor, and the ultrasound room was on the 2nd floor. There were many people in the hospital, so Li Rongrong had to take the stairs. Su Qingsang followed her. When they reached the stairs, Li Rongrong suddenly stopped. Su Qingsang, are you very proud now? What? She didn't understand why she was talking about this. Su Qingsang was confused. Wei Lenin doesn't want me, and he doesn't acknowledge the child in my belly. He even blamed me for you marrying another man. That's your business. Su Qingsang didn't want to get involved in their business. You should go find Wei Lenin. I did. Do you think I didn't? Li Rongrong said with a face full of hatred. But do you know what he said to me? What? He asked me to die with the child. When Li Rongrong said this, she moved closer to Su Qingsang with a fierce look on her face. This is his child. He actually asked me to die with the child. This woman was emotionally unstable. Su Qingsang took a deep breath. Calm down. If there's anything, you can discuss it with him. There's no room for discussion. Li Rongrong suddenly reached out to hug Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was startled, and instinctively raised her hand to push her away. But Li Rongrong had already let go of her hand. The stairs were behind her. Su Qingseng was shocked, but it was too late to stop her. She could only watch Li Rongrong's body fall down the stairs. Li Rongrong kept rolling down the stairs, accompanied by a scream. Su Qingseng was stunned. She rushed down as soon as she realized what was going on. Li Rongrong's face and head were covered in wounds. Beneath him was a pool of blood. She didn't look well. Her face was pale, but when she saw Su Qingseng coming down, she smiled at her. Su Qingseng, if my child and I are going to die, I'm going to drag you down with us. Li Rongrong. Su Qingseng was completely stunned by the scene in front of her. She looked at the pool of blood under Li Rongrong and the people who had gathered because of this incident. Hurry! Help me! It was a mess. Su Qingseng and Director Zhang tried their best to save Li Rongrong's life. In the end, her child was not saved. The 4-month-old baby boy had already taken shape. But it was gone just like that. Su Qingseng had never thought that Li Rongrong could be so cruel. In order to get back at her, Li Rongrong was willing to gamble with her unborn child. Was she crazy? Su Qingseng couldn't tell what she was feeling. She took out her phone and called Wei Lenin. No matter what, this child was Wei Lenin's. Whether there was or not, Wei Lenin should know. Wei Lenin arrived an hour later. Li Rongrong, who had lost a lot of blood, had not woken up yet. He saw Su Qingseng first. You're here. Su Qingseng was not surprised to see Wei Lenin's impatient and dissatisfied look. Chapter 184. Su Qingseng briefly explained the situation to him. After that, she looked at Wei Lenin. He stood there and didn't seem to have much of a reaction. He just confirmed, "Is the child really gone?" "Yes, really gone." Su Qingseng still felt a little uncomfortable thinking about the pool of blood. All right. Wei Lenin didn't have the patience to listen anymore. I will help her pay the hospital fees. This is not about the hospital fees. Su Qingseng was very angry at Wei Lenin's attitude. Li Rongrong lost a lot of blood. Although she is out of danger after the emergency treatment, we still need to be careful. What does that have to do with me? Wei Lenin didn't seem to be moved at all. Are you saying that I should hire a nurse? All right. I understand. Su Qingseng didn't speak. She took half a step back and looked at Wei Lenin. It was still the same face. She had dated him before, but she never knew that Wei Lenin had this side to him. At that moment, she suddenly felt very lucky that she broke off the marriage. Qingseng, don't you know who I like? Do you think I would be with a woman I don't like? If you don't like her, then why did you get her pregnant? She set me up. Wei Lenin said it with a confident face. Seeing that Su Qingseng was obviously going to lecture him, he said impatiently, "All right. I will hire someone to take care of her. You don't have to worry about these things." Su Qingseng didn't want to care about this anymore. She could see that Wei Lenin didn't want this child at all. Even if Li Rongrong gave birth, he probably wouldn't take responsibility. Wei Lenin paid the hospital fees, called a nurse over, and left. Su Qingseng looked at Li Rongrong, who was still lying alone on the hospital bed. Before she got off work, she called a nurse to take care of her. It had been a very tiring day. When Su Qingseng got off work and walked to the parking lot, her phone rang. "Qingseng, look at Weibo." Shi Mengwan's voice on the other end of the phone sounded very anxious. "What's wrong? What happened? You're famous again, but this time." Before Shi Mengwan could finish, Su Qingseng saw Hu Jinyao's car stop not far from her. His car had stopped in a hurry. It was obvious that he was in a hurry to find her. "Jinyao. Mengwan, I'll call you later. Let's talk later," she said to Shi Mengwan, who was on the other end of the phone. "Nope. Hu Jinyao was already there." Su Qingseng quickly hung up the phone. "Honey." Hu Jinyao looked a little anxious. "You're off work, aren't you? Hurry up and get on the car." "What's wrong?" Su Qingseng looked confused. Before she could ask clearly, Hu Jinyao had already brought her to the car and opened the door for her to get in. "Hu Jinyao," Su Qingseng called him. From the corner of his eye, he saw a group of people rushing towards him. She was startled. Before she could react, Hu Jinyao had already gotten into the car and started it. The people behind him had already started walking into the hospital. Su Qingseng didn't understand and turned to look at Hu Jinniao. What's wrong? What happened? You're trending again. Chapter 185. Is it hashtag the most beautiful doctor hashtag or hashtag the most vicious doctor hashtag? Dr. S, who was once named the most beautiful doctor by the citizens of the city, pushed a pregnant woman down the stairs today. The picture was of her standing on the stairs and Li Rongrong falling down the stairs. The picture was very clear. Su Qingseng's raised hand and Li Rongrong's falling body. Su Qingseng looked at the Weibo post and was dumbfounded. The vicious doctor pushed a pregnant woman down the stairs because of an old grudge? She glanced at Hu Jinniao, who was driving seriously. Who wrote this? Don't worry about who wrote it for now. Hu Jinniao's face was serious. He had a meeting in the afternoon and 2 cooperation plans to be discussed. So he didn't pay attention to the news on Weibo at first. By the time he found out, the topic hashtag the most vicious doctor hashtag had become a trending topic. But this time, the number of comments was much more than the number of likes. There was a lot of scolding. They were all scolding Su Qingseng. I didn't push her. Su Qingseng felt a little ridiculous. Su Qingseng fell down by herself. And at that time, she wanted to hold her but didn't hold her firmly. I know. These 3 words showed that Hu Jinniao trusted her. Su Qingseng couldn't help but look at him again. The sky was getting dark, but his side profile was as handsome as ever in the shadows. You trust me? You are my wife. Who else would I trust? Hu Jinniao reached out and squeezed her palm. I trust my wife. She would never push someone down the stairs. Su Qingseng's lips were tightly pursed. The warmth of his palm spread from the back of her hand to her heart. Thank you. He trusted her without asking for any reason, which really moved her. Silly. Hu Jinniao patted the back of her hand. You are my wife. You don't need to thank me. Su Qingseng shook her head and signaled him to concentrate on driving with her eyes. She lowered her head and scrolled through Weibo again. The top Weibo post had been reposted more than 50,000 times. It was accompanied by all kinds of scolding and attacks. Even the Weibo account that she had registered before, but hadn't used much, was found. The furthest Weibo post she had posted was a few months ago. At that time, he had just delivered a pregnant woman. Gu Zhao's Weibo post now had nearly 10,000 comments, all of which were scolding her. Su Qingseng had never heard so many vicious words. Her face darkened, her forehead was throbbing, and she had a terrible headache. She didn't want to watch anymore. He put his phone away. Don't worry. You'll be fine. Su Qingseng shook her head. She wasn't as optimistic as Hu Jinniao. I think the trouble this time is not small. But it's not big. Hu Jinniao glanced at her and gave a rather pertinent suggestion. You didn't push her. Even if they're hyping up the topic like this, there's no evidence. It was just a rumor. You can ignore it. How can I ignore it? Su Qingseng frowned. What if the hospital suspends me? You know, just like last time, the power of netizens is quite scary. That's great. I won't do it then. The car had already stopped at the apartment building. Hu Jinniao parked the car and took out the key. Since they don't believe you, then I won't be a doctor. Won't be a doctor. Su Qingseng couldn't smile. If I don't be a doctor, what can I do? It's not that you don't want to be a doctor. It's that you don't want to be a doctor in Lin City. Hu Jinniao turned to look at her. His expression was unprecedentedly serious. Honey, have you ever thought about going somewhere else to develop your career? Somewhere else? Where? Chapter 186. To Rong City? Su Qingseng had heard of Rong City. It was the largest city in the northern province. Yes. Hu Jinniao nodded. You should also know that I am from Rong City, and I have always wanted to take you back to Rong City. The hospital in Lin City can't keep you, but Rong City can. You want me to be a doctor in Rong City? Why not? Because of your talent. You can go anywhere. It doesn't have to be in Lin City. You can be a doctor anywhere? Why do you have to stay in Lin City? Su Qingseng understood what he meant, but she looked at the seriousness in Hu Jinniao's eyes. Suddenly she shook her head. No, I won't go to Rong City. Honey, listen to me. Su Qingseng held his hand. What I said just now is the worst-case scenario. But the hospital may not treat me like that. Even if it is true, as long as I don't agree, they dare not do anything to me. She didn't push Li Rongrong. She had a clear conscience. I don't want to admit defeat like this. If I really leave, then even if I didn't push her, others will say that I did. Even if I have to leave Lin City and go somewhere else, I want to leave openly and with a clean record. I don't want to leave with the reputation of such a vicious doctor. That's not what I want. Her gentle and beautiful face was filled with rare determination. Her eyes were as bright as the moon. Looking at Su Qingsang, Hua Jinyao suddenly reached out to her, gently rubbed the top of her head and said, "Yes. Okay, I believe you. Do you need my help?" "No." Su Qingsang shook her head. "Don't worry. I can handle it." As soon as she finished speaking, her phone rang. It was Deputy Director Li. "Director Li?" Su Qingsang glanced at Hua Jinyao. He was about to open the car door when he stopped to look at her. "Suspended?" Su Qingsang was stunned. "May I ask why?" She listened to Director Li's words with a sullen face. He said that there were still reporters in the hospital. Just like last time, the hospital was blocked again. But this time, it wasn't the patient's family, but a group of reporters. After the news came out on Weibo, the group of reporters kept staring at the hospital. The hospital administration had just blocked this matter, but they still had to show their attitude towards the public. "I didn't push her." Su Qingsang was very calm. She was neither angry nor agitated. "You can look at the surveillance cameras in the yard, or through any other methods to verify it. I really didn't push her. Dr. Su, we're all willing to believe you. But the people did not believe it, the media did not believe it, and the patients did not believe it. Right now, we need to temporarily suspend you to give the public an explanation. As for you, just bear with it a little and rest at home for a few days, okay?" Dean Li. Su Qingsang wasn't willing to accept such an arrangement. "I can't be suspended. Wouldn't my suspension be equivalent to my acquiescence? Then what do you want? Do you know how many reporters are outside right now? If you don't come to work now, you can also avoid the limelight." President Li. "All right. Dr. Su, don't be too stubborn. Just let it be." Su Qingsang looked at the phone, which had been hung up. Hua Jinyao was looking at her with concern. "Honey, I'm fine." Su Qingsang shook her head. "The hospital suspended me from work and asked me to rest at home for a few days." Hua Jinyao's face darkened. "Just a suspension?" Chapter 187. Is there even a need to investigate? It's impossible for you to do such a thing. Thinking of Li Rongrong, Hua Jinyao's face darkened. "How is that woman now?" "I don't know. She wasn't awake when I left." Su Qingsang smiled bitterly. "She fell by herself, but she did it on purpose. This woman is not normal at all. Just ignore it. I believe that your innocence will be proven in the end." "It's my fault. I clearly knew that she didn't get along with me, but I wasn't vigilant. How can you be blamed for this? You are a doctor. You definitely don't think too much about it." "That was right. She's a doctor. Doctors have the heart of a parent. How could he really be indifferent to the patient's pain? You know what? When she fell, she said that she wanted to drag me down with her. I really can't imagine that she would sacrifice her own child just to harm me." Hua Jinyao frowned. He was thinking about another possibility. A few days ago, she was the most beautiful doctor on Weibo, and today, she was the most vicious doctor. There must be someone behind this. "What's wrong?" Su Qingsang saw the serious look on his face and was confused. "Have you ever thought that she did all these things prepared? Her goal was to harm you. Have you thought about it?" Su Qingsang wasn't stupid. How could she not think of that? She did it to frame me, and to frame me, she didn't even want her own child. Have you ever thought that there is someone behind Li Rongrong? What do you mean? I'm not sure now, but I don't think it's that simple. Su Qingsang saw the serious look on his face and didn't think too much about it. That's not possible, is it? I'm not a big shot, not to mention that Li Rongrong and I did have some disagreements. Though she thought nothing of the unpleasantness. Hua Jinyao was not so optimistic. His instincts as a businessman made him used to thinking deeper and further into things. "Jinyao, Let's go upstairs and eat first. Hua Jinyao got out of the car first. However, there was a flash of gloominess in his eyes. No matter who it was, he would not allow anyone to touch Su Qingseng like that. If it was only Li Rongrong's scheme, he would only look for Li Rongrong. If there was someone else behind him, he wouldn't let it go just like that, no matter who it was. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingseng had already gotten out of the car. Noticing that his footsteps were a little fast, she called out to him. Hua Jinyao turned around, and the gloominess on his face was gone. Honey, don't think about it. The emperor has the most power when it comes to eating. Let's go. Eat. Su Qingseng had been a little worried at first, but now he had almost diverted her attention. No matter what would happen tomorrow, no matter what would happen, at least she still had Hua Jinyao. The next day, Su Qingseng thought for a long time and decided to go to the hospital. There were some things she needed to figure out. Even if she knew that Li Rongrong did it on purpose, she might not tell her the truth. Hua Jinyao decided to accompany her. He insisted on being with her, no matter how much she resisted. As expected, there were many reporters at the entrance of the hospital. Su Qingseng looked at the crowd and smiled bitterly in the car. I didn't know that I would become a celebrity in Lin City one day. I'm fine. Once we prove our innocence, you'll be even more famous. I don't want to be more famous. I just want to prove my innocence. Chapter 188. You will. Hua Jinyao encouraged her. Let's go in through the back door. Inside the door, a nurse she knew greeted Su Qingseng. She smiled at the nurse. Those who were willing to greet her at this time were really on her side. She went upstairs to the obstetrics and gynecology department. She knew where Li Rongrong's ward was, but she didn't expect to see reporters at the door at the end of the corridor. The nurse and the doctor were about to drive them away. Unexpectedly, Li Rongrong asked the nurse to call the reporters in. Su Qingseng glanced at Hua Jinyao. He was also looking at her. The two of them looked at each other, then walked to the ward together. The door was open. The reporters were all inside. The nurse was hired by Wei Lenin. Su Qingseng had seen her yesterday. At this moment, the nurse was helping Li Rongrong up. Her face was pale, and she looked very weak. Su Qingseng looked at the half-closed door. The two of them stood behind the door and looked at the scene inside. Miss Li, are you the pregnant woman who was pushed down the stairs yesterday? Miss Li, you agreed to be interviewed by us. Are you going to respond to that incident? Miss Li, is it really like what the internet says, that you were pushed down by the most beautiful doctor? Questions were thrown out one after another. Li Rongrong looked at them and smiled weakly. Her line of sight was blocked by the reporters. She couldn't see the door. Even if she could, she couldn't see Su Qingseng and Hua Jinyao from where they were standing. Thank you for coming here to be interviewed. I would like to tell you about what happened yesterday. Let more people know about it. Su Qingseng stood there. She could almost guess what Li Rongrong was going to say. I'm sure I'm the pregnant woman who was pushed down the stairs yesterday. Sure enough, Li Rongrong's first sentence was meaningful. I'm also very surprised that Su Qingseng would do that. Hua Jinyao's face darkened. He stepped forward and was about to walk inside. Su Qingseng held his arm and didn't let him in. Hua Jinyao glanced at her and understood what she meant. He stood there without moving. Su Qingseng? So you know that doctor? Miss Li, why did Dr. Su push you? Because. Li Rongrong said a few words and suddenly burst into tears. She was so emotional, and the reporters waited patiently for her to finish crying. Li Rongrong didn't cry for long, only a minute or two. After she stopped, she sniffed and took out a tissue to wipe her tears. She had an innocent face and looked pure and weak. Some of the male reporters present were filled with compassion. Actually, Dr. Su and I have some conflicts. Li Rongrong told her about what had happened with Wei Lenin. Of course, she told the same story. They said that Wei Lenin was pressured by his family, and that Su Qingseng's family used their power to oppress him. In short, the more pitiful she was, the better, and the more domineering Su Qingseng was, the better. No, she didn't even need to say that Su Qingseng was bad. She just needed to point it out. These reporters and the media would come up with their own melodramatic feuds. Su Qingsang stood there with a cold face. After listening to everything, she stepped forward and was about to go in. This time, it was Hu Jingyao who stopped her. What? Su Qingsang said in a low voice. She wants me to go in and reason with her. No. Hu Jingyao squeezed her palm. His slightly narrowed eyes were full of danger. We're not going in now. Chapter 189. Let's go. Hu Jingyao took her hand and walked outside. Let's go home first. Hu Jingyao. What did he want to do? I have a better idea. Hu Jingyao's voice was soft, but it was calming. Su Qingsang glanced at him and finally decided to believe his words. What's your idea? Didn't she accuse you of pushing her downstairs today? We don't need to confront her now. There are so many reporters inside. No matter what you say, you can only argue if you go in now. Reporters had always been eager to see the world in chaos. When the time came, it would be a mess. Then it will be a mess. Li Rongrong had nothing to do and was wasting time here. But Su Qingsang didn't. What he wanted was to hit the nail on the head. Yes, that was why she wanted to confront him. She didn't believe Qingsang. Hu Jingyao stopped and turned to look at her seriously. Do you believe me? Su Qingsang looked at his expression, bit her lip, and finally nodded. I believe you. It was rare for her to believe someone. If she said that, she really believed Hu Jingyao. Hu Jingyao smiled and hugged Su Qingsang. Qingsang, believe me. I will make her admit that everything she said today was to frame you. How could it be possible? Li Rongrong had said so much today. Could she betray him again? Didn't you just say you believe me? Su Qingsang nodded hesitantly. Hu Jingyao took her hand and said, Let's go. Let's go home. Go home. Yes. No. Let's go play today. I've always heard that there is a mountain in Lin City. The scenery is very beautiful in autumn. Don't you want to go with me? It was just after the Mid-Autumn Festival. In late autumn, the maple leaves on the mountain should be red. It was good. Su Qingsang glanced at her feet. I'm wearing high heels today. It's okay. We'll buy a pair of shoes later. I heard that the mountain is not high anyway. It's not high. I've been there once with my classmates, but not in autumn. Speaking of which, I've never seen what autumn is like in Jingshan. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Hu Jingyao left without hesitation, looking relaxed. Su Qingsang couldn't argue with him, so she followed him into the car. The two of them went nearby to buy a pair of comfortable sports shoes. Then he bought some snacks and water. Jingshan was about 10 kilometers away from Lin City. It wasn't far. The so-called mountain in this southern city was only about 1,000 meters above sea level. Because there were a few famous scenic spots on the mountain, a road was specially built halfway up the mountain in the early years. The car drove to the parking lot on the mountainside. There was a flight of stairs further up. It was time to walk by itself. Su Qingsang got out of the car first. The mountain breeze blew against her face, making her take a deep breath. So comfortable. The weather was good. It was a refreshing autumn day. The mountain breeze was neither hot nor cold. It gave people a very comfortable feeling. Hu Jingyao got out of the car and walked up to her. Let's go. I've never been here before. You have to be my tour guide. Sure. The comfortable environment made Su Qingsang forget about the troubles she had been having. She led the way up the stairs. Hu Jingyao picked up the snacks and water he had prepared in the bag and followed her. The stairs were very long. After walking for a while, Su Qingsang began to feel tired. Slow down. There's no hurry anyway. After the Mid-Autumn Festival, the temperature here was very suitable. Hu Jingyao walked in front of her and reached out to hold her hand. Come on. I'll hold your hand. Su Qingsang panted. Looking at Hu Jingyao's calm face, she felt a burst of jealousy. Chapter 190. She hadn't exercised for a long time, and she was exhausted. Your stamina is so weak. Hu Jingyao glanced at her and seemed to think of something. Next time, I think you should exercise more. My stamina is not bad. Your stamina is too good. Su Qingsang was out of breath again after saying a few words. Hu Jingyao couldn't help but laugh. He looked at the bench next to the steps in front of him and stopped. How about we take a break? Su Qingseng couldn't have asked for more. The two of them sat down on the bench, and Hua Jinyao handed her a bottle of water. Drink some water. Su Qingseng took it, took 2 sips and suddenly stood up. She quickly walked up a few steps, then turned to look at Hua Jinyao. Look over there. Hua Jinyao followed. In front of him was a large area of rocks with a Danxiao landform. The shape was peculiar, and the landscape was unique. I haven't been here for a long time. They had all forgotten. Halfway up the mountain was the largest Danxiao landform rock in Lin City. This area was called the 5-colored Danxia. Look, isn't that color beautiful? Yes. Hua Jinyao nodded. It was indeed good. I remember there's a maple forest further up. In this season, the maple leaves should be red. That's great. Isn't it great that we're here? Yeah. Su Qingseng nodded. Because it wasn't the weekend, there were almost no tourists on the mountain. She had gotten off lightly. Su Qingseng took out her phone to take a picture. After taking pictures of the scenery, she glanced at Hua Jinyao and finally asked him to take a group photo with her. After taking only 2 pictures, the man started to play tricks again. Pop. Hua Jinyao planted a big kiss on her face. Su Qingseng blushed. She glared at him, walked past him, and continued to walk up. Scenic Mountain was not big, and there were not many scenic spots. There were only a few of them, so it was easy to walk through them. However, these scenic spots were exquisite, and the weather was good today. Su Qingseng's photos were beautiful. She was also quite satisfied. Hua Jinyao had been staring at her. Looking at the faint smile on her beautiful face, he felt a certain part of his heart soften. The two of them walked to the last scenic spot in Jingshan. It was the stone forest at the top of the mountain. This stone forest wasn't big, but it was unique. It was arranged in picturesque disorder, like a chessboard. He felt like he was in the middle of a chess game. Outside the stone forest was the highest point of Scenic Mountain. You will rise to the top and take in all the mountains. Hua Jinyao stepped forward and put his arm around her waist. I didn't know that my wife was such a talented woman. Su Qingseng couldn't stand him. I learned it in elementary school. Everyone can recite it. I don't care. My wife is the best. Su Qingseng couldn't take it anymore. She looked ahead and said, actually, compared to nature, humans are really too small. Yes. Say, life is so short. Why are some people unwilling to live a good life, look forward, and work hard to manage their own lives? Hua Jinyao knew that she was thinking about Li Rongrong again, so he turned her body to face him. Because these people are blind to the truth. They don't know what they want. Su Qingseng nodded. Yeah. Some people live their whole lives without knowing what they want. Who said that? I know very well what I want. What? You. Hua Jinyao hugged her waist tightly and kissed her on the cheek. I want you. The suppressed voice was extremely pleasant to the ears, revealing a kind of languid and sexy feeling. Su Qingseng blushed. Chapter 191. Hua Jinyao wasn't joking with her. He leaned over and kissed her, as if he was really going to do something to her. Su Qingseng was startled. Just as she was about to avoid his face, she heard footsteps behind her. Hua Jinyao also heard it. He let go of Su Qingseng and took a step back. The two of them turned around and looked behind them. There was more than one person coming. It was a group. Su Qingseng saw the tall man at a glance. If she remembered correctly, this man seemed to be the big brother Shi Mengwan mentioned last time. Why was he here? Hua Jinyao also saw the man and raised his eyebrows. Why was he here? Beside the man was a petite and slender woman in a wedding dress. She was obviously tired and was panting. Brother Hausa, slow down. The petite woman took a few steps and realized that Hua Jinyao and Su Qingseng were also there. She was stunned for a moment. Jean Hausa turned around and helped her up. I told them to handle the post-processing, but you insisted on doing it yourself. It's better to do it myself. Chun Feifei panted and looked away from Hua Jinyao. Only then did Su Qingseng see that there was a group of people behind the two of them. Those people were holding all kinds of photography equipment in their hands. Looking at the wedding dress on the petite woman's body, what else was there to not understand? This group of people chose the scenic spots in Jingshan to take wedding photos? They were really in a good mood. As he spoke, Zhang Haoze had already walked in front of Hu Jiniao and Su Qingseng. Mr. Hua, Mr. Zhang, you are in a good mood. Hu Jiniao interrupted him and reached out to shake his hand. He didn't let him call him that. You came up the mountain to take wedding photos. Zhang Haoze reached out and clasped his hands. Hu Jiniao slightly exerted force. Zhang Haoze narrowed his eyes and chuckled. You're welcome. Mr. Hua is in a good mood. The Hua family obviously paused. Hu Jiniao understood Zhang Haoze's gaze. Yes, the weather is good today. I brought my wife out to get some fresh air. As Hu Jiniao spoke, he reached out and put his arm around Su Qingseng's waist. Hello, Mrs. Hua. Hello. Su Qingseng glanced at Hu Jiniao. Did he know this man? Qingseng, this is President Zhang. He has a partnership with our company. Brother Haoze. Chen Feifei bit her lip and looked at Zhang Haoze and Su Qingseng. They are. Feifei, this is Hu Jiniao from Tianyu. Zhang Haoze introduced Hu Jiniao directly. This is his wife. Hello. Chen Feifei nodded as if she had thought of something. Heaven Domain. Are you going to take wedding photos? Hu Jiniao smiled and interrupted Chen Feifei. The sun is a little bright now. I'm afraid it'll be hot. I'm fine. We'll go to the dark side to shoot. Zhang Haoze's physique was comparable to Hu Jiniao's. He was tall and handsome. Now, he was looking at Hu Jiniao's face with an indecipherable gaze. Chen Feifei looked at Zhang Haoze, and then at Hu Jiniao. She had a feeling that she had seen this Hu Jiniao before. But she had never been involved in the business world, so she didn't recognize him. Hu Jiniao smiled and said, If that's the case, I won't bother you anymore. We're done playing, so we'll take our leave first. Take care, Mr. Hua. Hu Jiniao nodded and walked past them with his arm around Su Qingseng's waist. Su Qingseng looked at the two of them and felt that something was wrong. Chapter 192. Seeing that she was deep in thought, Hu Jiniao moved closer to her and held her waist tightly with one hand. Honey, are you tired after playing for so long? Let's go down the mountain for dinner. Okay. Honey, what do you want to eat? Hu Jiniao put his arm around her waist and looked at her with a faint smile. Anything. Whatever is fine. Su Qingseng was indeed hungry. How about Sichuan cuisine? Okay. They walked away slowly. It was a normal conversation, but it surprised Zhang Haoze. He didn't expect Hu Jiniao to have such a side to him. Also, his wife didn't seem to know who he was. That was interesting. Zhang Haoze still remembered how Hu Jiniao was so powerful when he was negotiating with Tianyu. The Hu Jiniao was obviously different from the one in his memory. Was he good at pretending? Or was he just like that in front of Mrs. Hua? He didn't know. Brother Haoze. Chen Feifei saw and heard it too. She turned to look at Zhang Haoze with expectation in her eyes. Zhang Haoze was very nice to her, but it seemed to be a little far from what she wanted. She knew that he treated her as a sister, not a couple. She knew that he married her to repay a debt of gratitude. But she really wanted him to treat her as a woman he loved. What's wrong? His gentle voice was filled with affection. He looked at her with extreme gentleness, but she wasn't in his eyes. Chen Feifei felt a little bitter. She put her arm around Zhang Haoze's arm and said, Brother Haoze, let's go take some photos. Okay. Zhang Haoze nodded and let her hold his arm, but that was all. There was no more. Chen Feifei looked at his cold face, gritted her teeth, tiptoed and kissed him on the cheek. Zhang Haoze's brows furrowed imperceptibly, but he held her hand and walked forward as if nothing had happened. Su Qingseng was a little tired when she got back to the car. She sat there thinking about that man. Hu Jiniao, are you familiar with that man? Not really, but we've worked together. Hu Jiniao glanced at her casually. What's wrong? He doesn't look simple. Honey, are you praising him? Sort of. He's handsome too. He had a good figure. It looks pretty powerful. Honey, he's not as good as me. Yes, but you just called him young Master Zhang? Hu Jiniao blinked and said, It's his special hobby. He likes to be called that. Really? Su Qingseng looked at him suspiciously. Hu Jiniao leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Honey, I'll be jealous if you pay so much attention to other men. Stop it. That was not what she wanted to ask. Do you know who the woman beside him is? She should be his fiancée. Hua Jinyao thought about the rumor. He's not an ordinary person, but it seems that the Chen family has done him a favor. So he agreed to marry Miss Chen. He had seen Chen Feifei once before. She was a sickly beauty. Anyone in the business world who knew a thing or two about the Chen family would have heard that the daughter of the Chen family was frail and sickly. However, the Chen family's family head had good foresight. He had saved Zhang Haoze in the early years and trained him carefully. Now he had become an existence like Chen Feifei's guard. Is that so? Su Qingseng thought of Shi Mingwan. Shi Mingwan had always said that Zhang Haoze was her big brother. Chapter 193. Do you like him? What are you talking about? It was the first time she saw Zhang Haoze. How could she like him? Then why do you keep asking about him? Hua Jinyao raised his hand and put it on her shoulder. You've never cared about me like this. Hua Jinyao, that's enough. She just asked a few more questions for Shi Mingwan. If it weren't for Shi Mingwan, she wouldn't have cared about who Zhang Haoze was. Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingseng's expression. His pestering expression faded a little. However, he was a little annoyed with Zhang Haoze. That guy mentioned Tianyu on purpose. Not only in the industry, but in the whole country. Who didn't know about Tianyu? Fortunately, Su Qingseng devoted herself to her profession and didn't pay attention to these things. Otherwise, how could she know nothing about it? It seemed that he had to find something for Zhang Haoze to do next time, in case he talked nonsense. However, thinking that Zhang Haoze was forced to get married by the Chen family, he gloated again. Are you hungry? Why don't you drive? Su Qingseng turned around and saw him smiling a little strangely. That expression made her frown. Let's go. Su Qingseng was enjoying the mountain breeze. She was so comfortable that she didn't think about where she had heard the name Tianyu before. After dinner, they went to watch a movie. When they got home, Su Qingseng was already very tired. However, her tired body felt much better after taking a shower. She couldn't fall asleep, so she took out her phone. Habitually, she opened Weibo and glanced at it. The top local trending news made her forehead twitch again. She hadn't opened Weibo for half a day, and found that things were out of control again. Those reporters didn't know what was going on, so they all blamed Su Qingseng. Some even dug out Su Qingseng's identity and said that she was the illegitimate daughter of the Su family. She couldn't be shown in public, so it was no wonder that she was so cruel. This wave of insults and attacks was much more severe than yesterday's. Su Qingseng casually browsed through it and couldn't read it anymore. In the past, she only knew that there were keyboard warriors in this world. Today she met one and understood what it felt like. As soon as Hua Jinyao entered the room, he saw her sullen face, and then looked at the phone in her hand. What else could he not understand? He took a few steps forward, took her phone away and put it aside. Then he sat down beside her. Why do you look like that? Why do you care about these trolls on the internet? Su Qingseng shook her head. He wasn't her, so how could he understand? Just some irrelevant people. How is it worth your anger? Hua Jinyao pulled her into his arms as he spoke. Don't worry. The more they scold you today, the more painful the slap in the face will be when the truth is clarified tomorrow. How can it be as easy as you say? Su Qingseng still didn't believe him. You make it sound easy. Li Rongrong, do you believe me? Hua Jinyao put his arm around her waist, insisting on an answer from her. Su Qingseng looked at him and finally nodded. I believe you. Since you trust me, then wait and be patient. They like to scold. Let them scold. Curse to your heart's content. By tomorrow at the latest, the matter will be resolved. He sounded really confident. Su Qingseng was nervous, but now she could only choose to believe him. Well, I think you're just too free. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he turned over and lay on top of her. I think we need to do something else. You can divert your attention. Chapter 194. Li Rongrong went to sleep after talking nonsense in front of the reporters. Most doctors and nurses didn't believe the rumors. They had seen Hua Jinyao before. Yesterday, when Wei Lenin came, a nurse also saw him. With such an outstanding man like Hua Jinyao as a comparison, Wei Lenin looked like a scumbag. Li Rongrong wasn't afraid that the nurses didn't like her. She had a caretaker to take care of her. What were the nurses? There were reporters who came to ask about the situation, and the nurses told them the truth. But the reporters didn't write about the situation. Instead, they wrote that Su Qingsang hated Li Rongrong because she had to find someone else. They hadn't seen Hu Jiniao, but Wei Lenin was famous in Lin City. What else didn't they understand when they compared it and asked about it? If they understood it, the news would be distorted. Li Rongrong didn't even take care of her body. She started browsing Weibo and local forums after she woke up. The more people scolded Su Qingsang, the happier she was. How dare you steal my man? How dare you push me? At night, Li Rongrong asked the caretaker to buy food for her. She didn't like the food in the hospital. The caretaker left to buy dinner for Li Rongrong. Not long after she left, the door of the ward was opened. Did you buy it? I said I want to eat. Who are you? Li Rongrong was shocked to see a stranger enter her ward. She sat up and looked at the person in front of her warily. Su Qingsang was harassed by Hu Jiniao for the whole night, so she didn't have time to think about Li Rongrong. The next day, Su Qingsang felt uncomfortable all over. She criticized Hu Jiniao in her heart. This man was too much. He didn't know how to control himself. She was so weak that she was afraid that one day she would be killed by Hu Jiniao. She picked up her phone and wanted to browse Weibo, but she didn't want to see more curses. She put down her phone and it rang again. It was sure Mengwan again. Mengwan. Su Qingsang received her call and thought of Zhan Haoza. I have something to talk to you about. You, don't bother. I know everything. Huh? What do you know? What do you think I know? Shi Mengwan's voice was relaxed. She was so worried yesterday that she even seriously explained to Su Qingsang on Weibo. It was a pity that she was small and insignificant. There was no way she could overwhelm so many internet trolls and keyboard warriors. Now that the matter was resolved, she heaved a sigh of relief. How would I know what you know if you don't tell me? All right. Shi Mengwan was confused by the fact that she knew more. You must have known about it before me. You must have checked Weibo. What are you trying to do here? No. Su Qingsang shook her head, pressed the speaker button and opened Weibo. I haven't checked Weibo today. That's good. I'm the first one to inform you. Su Qingsang didn't hear what Shi Mengwan said clearly. She clicked on the latest local news. Hashtag the prettiest doctor hashtag is still the prettiest doctor. There was a video on it, but she didn't have time to watch it. She glanced at the title and the following article, and the twist in the article made her eyes widen. I won't tell you now. I'll take a look first. What was going on? As she clicked on the video, she heard the door open. You're awake. Chapter 195. Li Rongrong appeared in the video. She was in the ward, and there were at least a dozen microphones facing her on the small board in front of her. She looked at the camera with a pale face, and the flash in front of her kept flashing. Miss Li, may I ask why you are holding a press conference today? Miss Li, is there anything else you haven't told us? Miss Li, Li Rongrong bit her lip, and her eyes were full of indignation. She didn't want to say what she was going to say next. But, I invited you here today because I have something to tell you. For Li Rongrong, every word was very difficult to spit out. I'm sorry I lied yesterday. I wasn't pushed down the stairs by Dr. Su Qingsang. What? There were more than a dozen reporters who rushed into the ward, and they all looked at each other. Miss Li, can you please make it clear? Li Rongrong was very angry, but thinking that they had something on her, she had to compromise. The truth is that the child in my belly was already stillborn. As early as a week ago, I had a checkup, and another doctor said that the child had no heartbeat. They asked me to take the child out. I didn't want to. I wanted the child, but after a few days of observation, the child was still the same. The doctor said that it would be dangerous if I didn't abort it. Then I thought that if I abort the child, I might as well use it to do something. Li Rongrong's voice was getting softer and softer. It was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Su Qingsang's eyes widened, and she looked at Hu Jiniao, who had sat next to her in shock. Hu Jiniao nodded and motioned for her to continue watching. What else needed to be said? Li Rongrong wanted to use the child to harm her, And she really succeeded. Su Qingsang turned from the most beautiful doctor to the most vicious one. She also played a big role in it. She was not short of money, so it was not difficult for her to buy the hot search results and hire a water army. The reporters were shocked. One of them sensed that something was wrong. Miss Li, as you said, you did all of this to frame Su Qingsang. Then why did you say it out loud? Yes. Su Qingsang didn't understand, not to mention the reporters. After I lied yesterday, I felt guilty. Especially after I found out that Dr. Su was suspended. I felt that my behavior was wrong. Su Qingsang's eyes widened when she heard that. How could such a thing happen? She couldn't believe that someone like Li Rongrong would say something like that. This completely refreshed her understanding of the world. How could Li Rongrong go back on her words? This was not normal. Miss Li, can I ask if someone threatened you before you changed your words? A reporter's question stunned Su Qingsang. She subconsciously glanced at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao was watching the video. Noticing her gaze, he glanced at her and gestured for her to continue watching. Nope. I wasn't threatened. Su Qingsang withdrew her gaze and continued watching. Li Rongrong smiled. Through the screen, Su Qingsang couldn't see how stiff and ugly Li Rongrong's smile was. I really just found my conscience. I don't think this is good. Chapter 196. Yes. I have proof. I left a medical record when I was examined in another hospital. That can prove that what I said is true. Su Qingsang was not interested in what Li Rongrong said after that. He closed the video and scrolled up Weibo. He found that the trend on the internet had changed again. Those who had cursed the most yesterday were silent today. Those who didn't scold him yesterday had posted on Weibo today. The hashtag the most toxic doctor is a lie hashtag was pushed to the top. No one scolded her anymore. Occasionally there would be one or two who came out to question the authenticity, but they were also slapped in the face. After all, Li Rongrong had admitted it herself. What else was there to doubt? A crisis that had almost affected Su Qingsang's career had been resolved so dramatically? Su Qingsang even had an inexplicable feeling. It was like playing house. That's it. What else? Hua Jinyao's voice rang out. Su Qingsang looked up at him. Thinking back to how he had told her not to worry yesterday, the matter had indeed been resolved today. Hua Jinyao, did he already know? Did you make these? What? You want Li Rongrong to change her mind? Hua Jinyao smiled brightly. What's wrong? Are you not happy? It wasn't a matter of whether he was happy or not, but the whole thing was too weird. Li Rongrong changed her mind, just because you asked her to? It's that simple. It's that simple. What else? No, how did you do it? Didn't you hear her? What? She said that the hospital she visited before had her medical records. Is she telling the truth? Su Qingsang was stunned. She thought Li Rongrong was just saying that casually. Yes. Hua Jinyao nodded and held Su Qingsang's hand. In my opinion, even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs. No matter how ruthless a woman, especially a mother, is, she wouldn't use her own child as a bargaining chip. Besides, Li Rongrong's baby was over 4 months old. Since she wanted to marry Wei Lenin, she could only get more benefits by giving birth to a child. It was too stupid to use a child as a tool to frame Su Qingsang. That was why he wondered if it was possible that Li Rongrong didn't want the child in the first place. Therefore, it was much easier to get someone to investigate. First, he had to find out where Li Rongrong had made the records, and then find a way to get the medical records. Of course, all of this had to have connections. Li Junxing was the new mayor of Lin City. It was only a matter of minutes for him to call and get a certificate. This was only the first step. Yesterday, his subordinate, Yang Wenchang, and a colleague from the technical team had been busy for half a day. Check Li Rongrong's records and hack into her computer. This was very simple for them. It was much easier to find Li Rongrong's computer. This woman was very scheming. Naturally, there would be some shameful things in the computer. Once he brought these to the door and stated his conditions, the rest would be much easier. Li Rongrong could refuse, but once she did, Hua Jinyao would find someone to expose the truth. That would be a completely different story. Li Rongrong was not a fool. Since things had come to this point, she knew very well that the rest was not up to her. If the other party leaked those things to the media, her reputation would be ruined. Rather than let them destroy her, it was better for her to admit her mistakes first and minimize the impact. Li Rongrong was vicious, but she knew how to adapt to the situation. Hua Jinyao knew this, so she had no choice but to stand up and admit that she had lied. How did you know? Chapter 197. Meeting Su Qingsong's suspicious gaze. Hua Jinyao touched his nose and said, I asked someone to check it out. That easy. It's not very difficult. It was indeed that easy, but it wasn't good to say it so directly to Su Qingsong. Of course it took some effort. For example, I used some connections and found some people. Don't worry, they are all working with the company. It's difficult but it's okay. What he said was difficult, yet it was fine. Was it difficult or not difficult? Su Qingsong turned to look at Hua Jinyao with confusion on her face. Hua Jinyao, are you hiding something from me? What can I hide from you? You should ask yourself that. What can you hide from me? Honey. Hua Jinyao put his arms around her waist and kissed her on the cheek. Look, you've been cleared of the crime. I believe the doctor will let you go back to work soon. These are all good things. Shouldn't we celebrate? How? Su Qingsong didn't think there was anything to celebrate. Think of it as a celebration. Hua Jinyao held her and lay on the bed. How about 300 rounds to celebrate? Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsong's doubts were diverted by him. 300 rounds. Did he want to cripple her waist? No. Then let's do 100 rounds. Not even one round. Su Qingsong pushed him. Get up. I want to get up. Honey, don't get up. You don't go to work anyway. Hua Jinyao, are you going to move? Her phone rang. Su Qingsong pushed him away and quickly picked up the phone. Hello, Brothers Hua? It's me. Yes, go ahead. As soon as the words Brothers Hua came out, Hua Jinyao's mouth twitched. He resisted the urge to grab the phone and throw it away. He hated this kind of brother and sister the most. He put his arms around Su Qingsong's waist and turned to look at him with a warning look. He didn't know what the other side said, but a faint smile appeared on her face. Hua Jinyao leaned over and gently bit her cheek. Su Qingsong glared at Hua Jinyao. The look in her eyes was so cold that it seemed as if she wanted to kill someone. Hua Jinyao didn't let her go. He gave her another kiss on the other cheek. Although it was light, Su Qingsong was still frightened. She was afraid that Zhua Hongchen would hear her. That would be awkward. She glared at him warningly before continuing. Back to work? Okay, I got it. When? Tomorrow? Okay. I will. Don't worry, I'm not mad. Hua Jinyao stopped kissing her and put his arms around her waist instead. However, his hands were not well behaved, moving up and down. Hua. Su Qingsong realized how emotional she was. She cleared her throat and said, I understand. There was no need for that. There was really no need. I'll come to work on time tomorrow. She pinched Hua Jinyao's hand. His muscles were firm, and it was difficult to twist them. If she didn't have to talk, she would have bitten him. Thank you, Senior Brothers Hua. Goodbye. Su Qingsong tossed the phone aside, grabbed his hand and took a bite. It didn't hurt much, but it made her teeth ache. She let go of him and sat up straight. Hua Jinyao, can you not touch me when I'm on the phone next time? Hua Jinyao leaned over and gave her another kiss on the cheek. A mischievous look flashed across his eyes. I touched my wife. How did it become touching me? Su Qingsong looked at him like a rascal and almost lost her temper. Forget it. Why should she care about him? She pushed him away and wanted to get up. Chapter 198. Hua Jinyao smiled and sat her down on his lap. He leaned over and kissed her on both cheeks. Honey, where are you going? He asked. You're not going anywhere. Get up and have breakfast. She was hungry after such a long time. You're going back to work? Yes. You're going back to work just like that? Going back so easily? Wasn't it too easy for the hospital? What else can I do? Your hospital didn't even investigate before convicting you. Do you still want to go back to work so easily? You have to ask your director to invite you in person and visit him 3 times before you go back with him. Hua Jinyao said seriously. Su Qingsang pushed him away without hesitation. Stop it. She wasn't an expert. Visit him 3 times? Wasn't he afraid that she would be fired? I'm really not joking. Hua Jinyao stood up and stood beside her. Think about it. When did your hospital stand on your side when the pregnant woman jumped off the building, and this time? Not even once. Hua Jinyao held her in his arms. His voice was soft but firm. I'm not against you going back to work, and I'm not against you becoming a doctor. But your hospital is really bad. Every time something happens, you push the doctors out first. You don't want to solve the problem, but only want to get rid of the doctors. What's the point of working in a place like this? Then what do you want? Su Qingsang didn't know that it was the hospital's fault. But that was how things were now. Look at those hospitals that had accidents. Which one of them did not push the doctors out as soon as the hospital was in trouble? After all, the other departments of the hospital had to operate. She could understand. But Hua Jinyao's words did make her feel a little disappointed. I want you to go back to Rong City with me. Su Qingsang was stunned and looked at Hua Jinyao. Back to Rong City? Yes, back to Rong City. Hua Jinyao put his hands on her shoulders. I mentioned this to you before. You said you didn't want to go until you proved your innocence. Now that you've proven your innocence, you can leave the hospital and go to Rong City with me. Su Qingsang was silent. Yes, her innocence had been proven. She didn't push Li Rongrong. Her medical record was clean, and she could go wherever she wanted. Honey, what do you think? Hua Jinyao looked expectant, but Su Qingsang was a little hesitant. I need to think about it. What else do you want? Hua Jinyao tried to persuade her. Since you and I are married, we are one. Shouldn't you come with me when I go back to Rong City? Su Qingsang understood everything he said. But following a man to another city, a city in the north that was completely different from Lin City. Let me think about it. All right. There was no hurry. I'll wait for you to think it through. Hua Jinyao didn't want to put more pressure on her. But I also hope that you won't take too long to think about it. Su Qingsang nodded. Given the current situation, even if she wanted to think about it for a long time, it wouldn't work. She went to the bathroom to wash up. Just as she squeezed out the toothpaste, Hua Jinyao came in again. And Li Rongrong, have you decided what to do with her? Li Rongrong? Su Qingsang was confused and stopped brushing her teeth. What do you mean? She slandered you and almost got you suspended. Don't you want to take revenge on her? Chapter 199. Su Qingsang frowned. After brushing her teeth, she put the toothbrush aside and said, Didn't she already admit it? If so, her reputation will be ruined. Let's forget about it. It was not that she was soft-hearted, nor was she a saint. She just didn't want to waste time on these things. Hua Jinyao was not surprised at her answer at all. This time, she was so soft-hearted because it was solved in time. Li Rongrong's state at that time was that she couldn't wait to kill Su Qingsang. How could he allow such a thing to happen? This time he was lucky. His people found some good things in Li Rongrong's computer. But what if there was nothing in Li Rongrong's computer that could threaten her? What if Li Rongrong was not afraid of losing her reputation and tried to drag Su Qingsang down with her? She would be punished, but Su Qingsang would not be able to get away easily. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang had finished washing her face. Seeing that he was in a daze, she took 2 steps forward. What's wrong? Nothing. Let's go. Let's eat. Su Qingsang was soft-hearted and reluctant to do it. But he wouldn't. He had to teach Li Rongrong a lesson. Not only her, but also the person who bought the trending topic. It was not Li Rongrong who made Su Qingsang the most beautiful doctor. If it weren't for the headline, Li Rongrong wouldn't have been so angry that she wanted to bite Su Qingsang. Okay. After dinner, Su Qingsang didn't have to go to work today, so she decided to visit Shi Mengwan. Shi Mengwan was very worried about what had happened these few times. She cherished Shi Mengwan as a friend very much. Although she had called her, she still wanted to see her. Shi Mengwan was a little famous in the wedding dress industry. Many famous brands had asked her to order wedding dresses. She was also very busy on weekdays. Most of the time, she was busy in the wedding dress shop. Su Qingsang took some small cakes and snacks, and went to the milk tea shop to buy tea. The shop assistants in Shermengwan's shop all knew her. They took the snacks from her, thanked her one or two, and went to have afternoon tea. Su Qingsang went straight to Shermengwan's workshop to find her. Her wedding dress shop was very big, and the workshop was on the second floor. She went upstairs and entered the door. Shermengwan was sewing the edges of a wedding dress. Mengwan, Qingsang, why are you here? Shermengwan was happy to see her. Wait a minute, I'll be done in a moment. I just need a few more stitches. I'm fine. I'll wait for you. Su Qingsang took a few steps forward and looked at Shermengwan's wedding dress. It was inlaid with many diamonds and pearls. Shermengwan matched it well. The entire wedding dress was gorgeous and grand, elegant but not ostentatious. So beautiful. Yes, this is my proudest work in recent times. When Shermengwan was inserting the needle, she didn't forget to look at Su Qingsang proudly. Speaking of which, the owner of this wedding dress is related to you. Follow me? Yes. Your sister Su Peijian made the decision. Su Qingsang frowned. She thought of what Su Yusin had told her on the phone. You mean this wedding dress belongs to Su Peijian? Wasn't the engagement between Su Peijian and Qiu Yanba cancelled? Didn't they come here to cancel the order? Yes. When Shermengwan thought of Su Peijian, the corners of her mouth curled up. Only she has so many requirements. Diamonds and pearls. Fortunately, my skills are good. After the matching, it doesn't look tacky and weird. Yes. Who doesn't know that your skills are good? Chapter 200. Yes. He said it would be in a few days, but he hasn't come yet. He probably wouldn't come. Su Qingsang thought of something, and her expression changed. What's wrong? Shermengwan put away the needles. The final process was completed. She looked at the wedding dress and felt that it was perfect. She washed her hands and found Su Qingsang in a daze. What happened to you? You don't look good. I'm thinking that you probably won't need this wedding dress anymore. Why? My sister, Su Peijian, seems to have cancelled the engagement with Qiu Yanba. Since they won't get married, they won't come to get this wedding dress. Really? Shermengwan also knew about the Su family. Although her family couldn't compare with the Su and Li families, they were still a small family. How could it be cancelled? Such a well-matched marriage has been arranged for several years. How could it be cancelled just like that? She suddenly approached Su Qingsang with a face full of gossip. Could it be that Qiu Yanba cheated on her? Fortunately, Shermengwan was beautiful. Otherwise, if someone else made such an expression, it would definitely be very wretched. I don't think so. At most, he had a change of heart. No way? Really? Su Qingsang didn't know why Qiu Yanba suddenly wanted to cancel the engagement with Su Peijian. Look at you. You must know the inside story. Tell me quickly. Shermengwan hooked her arm, looking as if she wanted her to quickly satisfy her curiosity. Su Qingsang was speechless. Why are you so curious? Of course I'm curious. Shermengwan raised her eyebrows. Your sister always seems to have eyes on the top of her head. She doesn't like anyone and wants to stab them when she sees them. I really want to know who on earth could take away your brother-in-law's heart under the nose of someone like her. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She's not as exaggerated as you said. More exaggerated than I said. Shermengwan shook her arm. Tell me, do you know the inside story? What do I know? I only know that Qiu Yanba seems to like someone else. It wasn't like it was the truth. But Su Qingsang couldn't say it. This kind of thing was really embarrassing. Heavens! Do you know who it is? Su Qingsang. Two voices rang out at the same time. Su Qingsang was startled by the sudden sound. He turned around and realized that Su Peijian had arrived without him noticing. She glared at her, and the resentment on her face was hard to hide. What did you say? When Su Qingsang saw her, she cursed in her heart. Talking behind someone's back and being caught red-handed was indeed a little embarrassing. Sis, don't call me sister. I don't have a sister like you. Su Peijian was also acting on a whim today. Although her marriage with Qiu Yanba had fallen through, she still couldn't bear to part with him. It was one thing for them to be well-matched in terms of social status. She was also sincere to Chiu Yamba. Since they couldn't get married, they could just take the wedding dress and keep it as a souvenir. But who would have thought that she would hear such news? You said that Chiu Yamba has a woman he likes outside? Previously, she kept saying that they were not suitable and that there were no feelings between them. Su Peijian thought that Chiu Yamba was tired of being with her every day. But she didn't know that there was an inside story. She stood in front of Su Qingsang angrily. At this moment, Su Peijian hated her too. Chapter 201. Laughing at Su Peijian? Why would she say that? I didn't. Su Qingsang shook her head and looked calm. Even if she didn't have a sisterly relationship with Su Peijian, she wouldn't think of laughing at her. You didn't? You didn't. You just said that you knew Yamba had a change of heart? Su Peijian's face darkened. She was sure that Su Qingsang didn't say it on purpose. She was the last one to know that her man had a change of heart? Was there anything more ridiculous than this? Su Qingsang had nothing to say. Think what you want. I did know it by accident. Accident? Su Peijian nodded. Her expression was a bit fierce. Since it was an accident, why don't you tell me who that woman is? I don't know. Su Qingsang answered very quickly. Only Shi Mengwan, who knew her very well, could see the difference from her accidentally moving fingers. She looked at Su Qingsang with some gossip. Her best friend was good enough. Not only did she know about Chiu Yamba's affair, but she also knew who the woman was. You don't know? Su Peijian didn't believe it at all. If you really don't know, then how did you know that Yamba had a change of heart? You obviously know the person. Did you not tell me on purpose? No. Su Qingsang didn't want to answer this question. Sister, I really don't know. Good, very good. Su Peijian nodded. You don't know who it is, but you know he had a change of heart? Su Qingsang had nothing to say. Su Peijian wouldn't let it go like this. You knew he had a change of heart, but you didn't tell me? Su Qingsang, is this how a sister should be? Su Qingsang was a bit speechless. Would you believe me if I told you? Then how do you know I won't believe you if you don't tell me? Who would you believe? Would you believe me? Or Chiu Yamba? Su Qingsang didn't want to get involved in this mess at all. Sister, can you be reasonable? She didn't do anything back then. But Su Peijian already thought that she coveted Chiu Yamba. How dare she say those things in front of her now? Su Peijian didn't say anything. She stared at Su Qingsang with hatred and finally nodded heavily. Su Qingsang, you're good. Shi Mengwan watched Su Peijian leave angrily and turned to face Su Qingsang. Qingsang, aren't you good? Su Qingsang was having a headache, so she didn't want to talk about it. Alright, don't talk about it. Don't. My gossipy heart has been ignited by you. Tell me, who is the woman who made Chiu Yamba abandon the eldest daughter of the Su family? Su Qingsang pulled her hand away and looked helpless. 5 minutes later, after hearing the whole story, Shi Mengwan's eyes widened. Oh my god, Qingsang, are you serious? You even managed to deal with the Chou family's young master? She'll keep your voice down. Su Qingsang wanted to cover her mouth. You want everyone to know, don't you? Don't worry, someone will come here for the time being. Shi Mengwan looked like she had never expected this. I really didn't expect you to have such charm. I'd rather not. Shi Mengwan looked at her and nodded slightly. That's true. It's considered a rotten peach blossom. She suddenly sat up straight and looked at Su Qingsang with concern. Qingsang, I think you should be more careful. Miss Su is not someone to be trifled with. She's still so angry, even though she doesn't know about you and Chiu Yamba. What if she finds out? Chapter 202. What's wrong? Hua Jinyao noticed something was wrong with Su Qingsang when he got home. Honey, what happened? Nothing. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She couldn't help but look at Hua Jinyao. She didn't look like she was fine. Hua Jinyao stretched out his hand and pulled the corners of her mouth. Nothing. You don't even smile. Didn't you go to play with your good friend today? What's wrong? Didn't you have fun? Su Qingsang shook her head and looked at Hua Jinyao. Finally, she told him what had happened. She didn't know when she had gotten used to confiding in him. She had always been used to solving problems by herself. She didn't know when Hua Jinyao started to make her feel at ease. She could start to trust him. At least, she was willing to believe that he wouldn't hurt her or hurt her. Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change. What's there to worry about? You didn't instigate Qiu Yanba to break off the engagement. That's true, but no buts. Hua Jinyao took her hand and put it in his palm. He put his other hand around her shoulder. Qiu Yanba is an adult. He needs to learn to be responsible for his own choices. He wanted to break off the engagement. He didn't want her. Even if Su Peijian found out and came to you to settle the score. What's the reason? Su Qingsang had nothing to say. Hua Jinyao turned her face to look at him with an extremely serious expression. Honey, even if she wants to pester you endlessly, it's fine. But Qiu Yanba said he likes you. But he brought you so much trouble. Don't you think that these problems need to be solved by him? He was right. Su Qingsang followed Hua Jinyao's train of thought and couldn't help but nod. So, Su Peijian isn't your trouble. She's Qiu Yanba's trouble. If Qiu Yanba has a change of heart, even without you, there will be someone else. If that's the case, what's there to worry about? Su Qingsang was silent. She looked at Hua Jinyao's handsome face for a while and finally said, Hua Jinyao, I found that you're really good at talking. He had a way of persuading people, and she couldn't refute it. You're good at talking? Hua Jinyao kissed her on the cheek as he spoke. I think so too. No, I think I'm better at talking. Don't you agree? As he spoke, his gaze swept over a certain part of her body. Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore. She crossed her arms in front of her chest. Where are you looking? Look wherever you want. Hua Jinyao pulled her hand away and moved closer to her again. Honey, tonight, I'll let you have a taste of my eloquence. Stop it. Su Qingsang pushed him away. I'm hungry. Let's eat. Sister Lu had already prepared dinner and left earlier. The food was still warm and ready to eat. Su Qingsang couldn't take it anymore. The two of them sat down at the dining table, one after the other. Hua Jinyao scooped a bowl of soup for Su Qingsang and placed it in front of her. Seeing that she looked much more relaxed than before, he asked tentatively, Honey, have you really decided to go back to work tomorrow? Yeah. Didn't we agree on it? Can you take a few days off from work? Leave? Why? You see, it's really too much for your hospital to treat you like this. You're so obedient. And you went back just because they told you to. Don't you have no ambition? Chapter 203. That's one aspect. Hua Jinyao gestured for her to continue drinking the soup. You have to show the hospital their attitude. You're not someone they can fire or suspend at will. Su Qingsang was his wife. It would be strange if he wasn't angry at the hospital's attitude. And then, secondly, aren't you annoyed with Su Peijian? Since she knows that you know about Qiu Yanba, she will definitely come looking for you. Even if she can't do anything to you, she's angry right now. Don't you think avoiding her is a good choice? He wasn't afraid of Su Peijian, but he really wanted Su Qingsang to accompany him to Rong City. How? It wasn't like Su Peijian didn't know where she lived. Where could she hide? Come to Rong City with me. Hua Jinyao looked serious. We're going to have fun for a few days. On one hand, we can avoid Su Peijian. On one hand, it'll let the hospital know that you're not a pushover. Su Qingsang resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Who could bully her? It was understandable for the hospital to handle it this way. But thinking about it, going to Rong City with Hua Jinyao didn't seem so unacceptable. Just for a few days? Just a few days. Hua Jinyao nodded and held her hand. It's all up to you. If you don't like staying there, or if you don't like it, we'll come back right away. Su Qingsang lowered her head and concentrated on drinking the soup. She began to think about what Hua Jinyao had said. Su Peijian would definitely come looking for her again. Although she had a clear conscience, she really didn't want to argue with her over Qiu Yanba. Going to Rong City for a few days wasn't a bad idea. She suddenly looked up at Hua Jinyao and asked, Do you have something to do in Rong City? Hua Jinyao smiled and leaned over to kiss her on the cheek. That's why people say that my wife is smart. It's just a small matter. Su Qingsang almost spilled the soup in her hand. What is it? Are you sure you can solve it in just a few days? Sure. It's just a contract. He made it sound simple, so Su Qingsang didn't think too much about it. Recently, there were a lot of messy things happening around her. Thinking about it, going out to play for a few days was not a big deal. Su Qingsang was still a little tired when she boarded the plane. She yawned and wanted to sleep as soon as she sat down. Hua Jinyao very considerately picked up the blanket and covered her body. The flight will take more than 2 hours. If you're tired, you can take a nap on the plane. Su Qingsang glared at him. Who was responsible for her tiredness? Who made her so tired? This guy. She had only agreed to come to Rong City yesterday, but tonight, he kept asking for her, as if he had taken stimulants. She didn't want to admit that she had poor stamina. She could only blame him for having too much stamina. She closed her eyes to sleep. She was really sleepy. He slept until he got off the plane. After resting for a while, his body finally recovered some strength. When she got off the plane, the cold air made her shiver. Here, put on your coat. Hua Jinyao was prepared. He took out a thick woolen coat early in the morning. Su Qingsang was wrapped in the coat and felt the coldness dissipate a lot. She lowered her head to take a look. The dress didn't seem to be from her wardrobe. Where did the clothes come from? I bought it. Hua Jinyao straightened her clothes and said with a gentle expression, Rong City is not like Lin City. It's already very cold here. Are you cold? Do you want to buy a down jacket? No need. She wasn't that afraid of the cold. Let's go. Okay. Hua Jinyao held her hand and walked outside, but they hadn't left the airport yet. They met an acquaintance. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.